With Hashimoto, it can feel like your body turns on you at random. One week you're almost okay, and the next, the fatigue, brain fog, bloating, and mood crashes slam back like a wave. Most people are told, it's just your thyroid, or it's just gluten. But in this video, I want to show you something different. That your flares usually follow a pattern between your immune system, your gut, and your real life. And by the end, you'll have a simple 14-day flares map to stop guessing, see your triggers on paper, and walk into your next appointment with data, not just desperation. Now, let me guess how this actually went for you. You didn't start searching Hashimoto flares on a good day. You went down the rabbit hole after yet another week when your energy crashed for no clear reason, your gut felt off, your brain fog got worse, and your mood was all over the place. Maybe your doctor told you your thyroid numbers are fine, or blamed stress and age, while you felt like a stranger in your own body. Today, we're going to unpack 3 things. 1. Why Hashimoto flares come in waves and what the science actually says about the gut-thyroid axis. 2. Why the internet obsession with going gluten-free is way more complicated than gluten is poison versus gluten-free is a scam. 3. How to build a calm, realistic plan to observe your flares before you rip entire food groups out of your life. Before we go into details, I want you to sit with one question. When your symptoms spike, what's the first thing you blame? Your thyroid, your medication, or yourself? Because how you answer that will shape how you listen to the rest of this video. Let's zoom out for a second. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease. The thyroid is the target, but the immune system is the driver. That driver never really turns off. It just goes through more active and less active phases. That's why autoimmune conditions, not just Hashimoto's, naturally tend to flare and calm over time. Here's the twist most people never hear at their 10-minute doctor appointment. About 70% of your immune cells live in and around your gut, in what scientists call the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. The gut is not just a digestion tube. It's one of the main meeting rooms where your immune system decides, is this safe? Is this dangerous? Should we stay calm or attack? So, when we say gut-thyroid axis, we're talking about a two-way street. Your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria in your intestines, helps train immune tolerance, influences inflammation, and affects how thyroid hormones are converted and how nutrients like iron, selenium, and iron are absorbed. In the other direction, thyroid hormones affect gut motility and the environment those bacteria live in. When thyroid function is off, constipation, slow digestion, and small intestinal bacterial overgrowth become more likely. Recent research shows a consistent pattern. People with autoimmune thyroid disease, including Hashimoto's, often have less diverse gut microbiota and a shift toward more pro-inflammatory patterns compared to people without Hashimoto's. Now layer on intestinal permeability, what the internet calls leaky gut. When the gut lining is stressed and leakier than it should be, microbiota changes and permeability seem to go hand in hand with the development and progression of the disease. In simple language, when the gut lining is stressed or leakier than it should be, more fragments of food, bacteria, and toxins can slip into places they don't belong. The immune system sees that and says, okay, that's enough. Everyone to battle stations. And in someone who already has Hashimoto's, that general immune alarm can also turn into extra attention on the thyroid, bumping up inflammation and antibodies. That's where a lot of your waves come from. It's not that your thyroid wakes up every few weeks and decides to betray you. It's that your immune system and your gut environment are constantly negotiating, and certain triggers push that negotiation toward attack mode. The problem is, most of us are never told this. We're told, your TSH is high, here's levothyroxine, or your TSH is fine, so everything is fine, even when you feel anything but fine. So your symptoms bounce, your labs sometimes don't match how you feel, and you're left scrolling late at night, reading strangers on the internet arguing about gluten, dairy, nightshades, and 14-step protocols. Let me ask you another honest question. Have you ever made a huge diet change after a horrible flare, like going instantly gluten-free, without really tracking what was happening in your life and your gut before that flare? If you have, you're not alone. When the waves get big enough, you grab the biggest lever you can find. In the rest of this video, I want to help you do something more strategic. First, we'll break down 3 layers that explain why flares come in waves. 1. The gut-thyroid axis basics: how your microbiome, nutrient absorption, and immune tolerance shape your symptoms. 2. Why gluten is so controversial in Hashimoto's and what the newest data actually say when you don't have celiac disease. 3. The real-life flare triggers that almost never show up on your lab report, but show up all over your calendar, your stress levels, and your sleep. By the end, I want you to look at your flares not as punishment, but as data you can map. Next, we'll zoom in to the gut-thyroid axis and how small gut shifts can trigger out-of-nowhere flares even when your labs look normal. Let's peel back layer 1. The gut-thyroid axis in real life, not in a textbook. Picture your gut like a busy neighborhood. You've got friendly neighbors, bacteria that help you digest fiber, make vitamins, and send calm down signals to your immune system. You've also got some more aggressive types that, in the right balance, are fine, but in the wrong balance, stir up drama. When that neighborhood is balanced, your immune system is more likely to stay tolerant. Okay, this is food, this is harmless. We don't need to attack everything that moves. Those same microbes help you absorb micronutrients your thyroid absolutely depends on. Selenium and zinc to help convert T4 into active T3. Iron and B vitamins to support energy and hormone signaling. Healthy bioflow and gut motility so your medications and nutrients actually get where they need to go. Now imagine what happens when that neighborhood gets shaken up. You have a week of high stress, lousy sleep, and more takeout. Maybe you take an antibiotic for a sinus infection. Maybe you barely eat any fiber because you're grabbing whatever's easiest between work and family. To you, it just feels like a crazy week. To your gut, it feels like a small earthquake. Some of the calmer bacteria shrink in number. Some of the louder, more inflammatory ones expand. The chemicals they release change. Your immune system reads the situation differently. Instead of all good, the message slowly turns into, something's off. Stay on alert. At the same time, the lining of your gut, that single-cell thin wall that decides what gets into your bloodstream, can become a little more permeable under stress, poor diet, infections, or alcohol. Not ripped open, just leakier than it should be. Now more fragments of food proteins, bacterial components, even bits of toxins can slip through. Your immune system sees them and hits the alarm. And if you already have an autoimmune condition, that alarm easily spills over into body-wide inflammation, including more attention to your thyroid tissue. You don't feel this as, my gut lining is 12% more permeable. You feel it as, why am I so bloated again? Why did my brain fog come back? Why do I need 3 coffees just to function? And if you check labs in that moment, sometimes TSH barely moves. It might wiggle a little, but not enough for a doctor to say, aha, here's your smoking gun. The bigger shift is your immune activity and inflammation, not just your hormone levels. So the wave hits, and you're left staring at your plate thinking, okay, what did I eat? This is usually the point where the internet shouts back. It's gluten. It's always gluten. If you have Hashimoto's and you're not gluten-free, you're sabotaging yourself. Let me slow that down. Gluten absolutely matters in some people. In celiac disease, eating gluten triggers a strong autoimmune attack on the small intestine. In that situation, a strict gluten-free diet isn't optional, it's non-negotiable. If you have Hashimoto's and celiac, gluten-free is a medical treatment, not a wellness trend. But most people with Hashimoto's do not have confirmed celiac disease. They might have non-celiac gluten sensitivity, another gut issue, or simply a very stressed, inflamed gut. Studies looking at gluten-free diets in people with Hashimoto's but without celiac show mixed results. Some find small improvements in antibodies or symptom scores. Others don't find much difference. And gluten-free can also change your microbiome in ways that aren't always positive. Less fiber variety, fewer whole grains, more processed gluten-free products. So blanket rules like, if you have Hashimoto's, you must go gluten-free forever, ignore all that nuance. Here's the deeper problem. If we blame only gluten, we miss the bigger picture of the gut-thyroid axis. What if your biggest flare triggers are stress, sleep disruption, infections, or big swings in iodine selenium, and gluten is just one piece of a larger mosaic? What if going gluten-free calms things down a little, but you still ride the waves because nobody helped you map the other triggers? Let me ask you your second reflective question. Progress tip. When you look back at your worst flares, do you honestly see just bread, or do you also see a season of stress, poor sleep, travel, illness, or big life changes stacked around it? Most people, when they really zoom out, see patterns that are much bigger than a single food. I'm not here to tell you that gluten is harmless or that gluten-free is pointless. I'm here to tell you that context matters. Your gut microbiome, your nutrient status, your stress, your sleep, your hormones, all of that shapes how your body responds to the same slice of pizza on different days. Next, we'll walk into the gluten war. When gluten-free makes sense, when it's just a trial, and when it backfires in Hashimoto's. Let's walk straight into the minefield, gluten and Hashimoto's. If you spend 5 minutes in a thyroid Facebook group, you'll see two extremes. Oh, gluten is poison. If you're not gluten-free, that's why you're still sick. Oh, gluten-free is a scam. Just take your meds and stop overthinking it. The science is in the messy middle. A recent systematic review looked only at people with Hashimoto's who did not have diagnosed celiac and followed a gluten-free diet. What did it find? Some antibody changes. Anti-thyroglobulin went down on average, anti-TPO went up a bit, and no consistent changes in TSH, free T4, or free T3. The overall evidence was rated as low quality. Translation: gluten-free might shift antibodies a little in some people, but right now we can't say, yes, this is a reliable treatment for Hashimoto's if you don't have celiac. On top of that, we still don't have strong, long-term randomized trials in non-celiac Hashimoto. A lot of the excitement is built on small studies and self-reported improvements, not rock-solid proof. Meanwhile, what does a gluten-free diet actually do to your gut? Studies in celiac patients and healthy adults on gluten-free diets consistently show changes in the microbiome, often fewer beneficial bacteria like bifidobacteria, and shifts toward species we're less excited about. Some newer research even shows that a year of gluten-free eating can measurably change gut volume, transit, and bacterial makeup. That doesn't mean gluten-free is bad. It means this is not a neutral switch. In the wrong context, it can become a double-edged sword, especially if it pushes you towards ultra-processed gluten-free products with more sugar and less protein. So, here's a more grounded way to think about it. 1. If you have celiac disease or clear signs, chronic diarrhea, severe iron deficiency, strong family history, gluten-free is critical. But get screened before you cut gluten because going gluten first falsely can make tests look normal. 2. If you have Hashimoto's without celiac, gluten-free is best treated as a structured experiment, not a life sentence you jump into on day 1. Test for celiac, or at least discuss it with your clinician if your history suggests it. Protect your microbiome. If you try gluten-free, keep fiber, plants, and minimally processed foods high. Don't just swap bread for gluten-free cookies. Give it a defined trial window and track symptoms and labs, not just vibes. 3. If your gut is already fragile, IBS, SIBO, reflux, constipation, sometimes the bigger win is not no gluten ever, but more consistent fiber, better sleep, less alcohol, steadier meals. Here's your third reflective question. If you took gluten completely out of the picture, would the rest of your life still look like a flare factory, high stress, chaotic sleep, skipped meals, constant rushing? Because that brings us to layer 3, the real-life flare triggers that rarely make it into lab reports. For many people with Hashimoto's, the biggest waves don't start in the bakery. They start here. Infections, a cold, COVID, a UTI, a stomach bug. Every infection is a big immune activation. If your immune system is already primed toward autoimmunity, that surge can temporarily bump thyroid antibodies or inflammation. Stress spikes, crisis at work, caregiving, divorce, money fear. Chronic stress hormones alter gut motility, microbiota, and intestinal permeability. Sleep disruption, travel, late nights, early mornings, scrolling in bed. Even a few nights of poor sleep increase inflammatory markers and mess with blood sugar and appetite. Big iodine swings. Suddenly adding high-dose iodine or seaweed every day can be too much fuel for a sensitive thyroid. Extreme restriction isn't great either. Autoimmune thyroids like steady and moderate, not roller coasters. Major hormonal transitions. Postpartum, perimenopause, menopause. Estrogen, progesterone, and immune balance are tightly linked, so Hashimoto's often surges in these phases. Aggressive diet overhauls, ultra-low carb from one day to the next, intense fasting in a very stressed body, or cutting whole food groups without support. Your microbiome and metabolism feel those shocks. This is where I want to tie back to 3 pillars: sleep, rhythm, and inflammation. A calmer, more predictable daily rhythm, consistent bed and wake times, regular meals, daylight exposure, gentle movement, doesn't just make you feel healthier, it stabilizes your circadian clock, stress hormones, gut motility, and microbiome. All of that feeds into the gut-thyroid axis and can shrink your flares over time. So, if we zoom out, the gut-thyroid axis explains why the ways exist. Gluten is one possible piece, but the science does not justify a universal, panic-driven ban for every non-celiac person with Hashimoto's. Real life, stress, sleep, hormones, infections, nutrient swings is often the hidden engine behind your worst weeks. The question now is how you turn all of this from theory into something you can actually use without losing your mind. Next, a simple flares map, 3 symptoms, 3 exposures, 14 days, to spot your main triggers and walk into your next doctor visit with data. Let's turn the waves into something you can actually see and work with. I call this your flares map. Not a fancy app, not a complicated tracker, just a simple way to stop guessing and start noticing. Step 1. Choose your 3 core symptoms. Pick 3 things that really define a flare for you. For example, energy, 0 to 10. Brain fog or mental clarity, 0 to 10. Bloat, pain, mood, or joint pain. Pick one that matters most, 0 to 10. Every evening for 14 days, you quickly score each from 0 to 10. 0 equals barely there. 10 equals this ruined my day. That's it. No paragraphs, no essays, just numbers and maybe a 2-word note like crash day or felt steady. Step 2. Choose your 3 exposures. On the same page or spreadsheet, you track 3 exposures that could be feeding the waves. Sleep, hours slept or bedtime consistency. In bed before 11 p.m. equals 1. After 11 p.m. equals 0. Stress, quick 0 to 10 rating or low, medium, high. Gut or diet event, what matters for you? Gluten servings, takeout or ultra-processed meals, alcohol, or stomach upset, no upset. You can add brief notes for infections, travel, your cycle, or big hormone changes if they happen, but don't overwhelm yourself. The goal is 14 days of real data, not the prettiest chart on Instagram. For 2 weeks, your only job is to watch, not overhaul. You keep your medication as prescribed, you don't suddenly cut 5 food groups, and you just track. Here's the question at the center of this experiment. If you could clearly see that your worst flares follow the same 1-2 triggers over and over, would you still treat your symptoms like random bad luck? After 14 days, you sit down, maybe with a cup of tea, and you look for patterns. Do your high symptom days cluster after 2 short nights of sleep? Do they show up after rows with very high stress? Do they follow heavy takeout, alcohol, or specific foods? Do they line up with infections, your cycle, or big emotional events? You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for, this keeps happening together. Step 3. When does gluten-free make sense? If your map plus your history suggest classic celiac red flags, chronic diarrhea, major weight loss, iron deficiency that won't budge, strong family history, this is the time to talk to your clinician about celiac testing before you remove gluten. Don't rob the test of its power. If celiac is ruled out, but your map shows clear gut symptom spikes after gluten-heavy days, you might choose a 4 to 6 week gluten-free trial as a structured experiment. You keep your sleep, meds, and routine as stable as possible. You don't just swap bread for gluten-free junk food. You focus on real food, protein, vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, gluten-free whole grains. You keep tracking the same 3 symptoms plus 3 exposures, so you can compare. Remember, one big change at a time for 4 to 6 weeks. Not gluten-free, low-carb, fasting, and 3 new supplements. If everything changes at once, you can't tell what actually helped. Step 4. Bring your map to your clinician. If, after mapping and a calm experiment or 2, you're still getting big, mysterious waves, that's when labs become powerful tools, not random numbers. TSH, free T4, and free T3 if your clinician agrees. Thyroid antibodies, TPO, TG, plus whatever else fits your story, iron, B12, vitamin D, etc. Instead of walking in saying, "I feel awful," you walk in with a 14 to 30-day snapshot.
Here are my symptom scores. Here's how they line up with my sleep, stress, infections, and diet. Here's what happened when I tested gluten-free or when I focused on sleep. That changes the conversation. You're no longer the anxious patient whose labs look okay. You're the co-pilot bringing data from your actual life. Quick but important note. I am not a doctor. This video is educational, not medical advice. Do not change your medication, diet, or treatment plan without talking to your physician or qualified health professional. Always consult your physician. Here's the deeper reframe I want you to carry out of this. Your flares are not proof that you're weak, lazy, or failing. They are a signal. They're your body raising its hand saying, something in this system is too loud. When you map those signals, you start to see. My body hates 3 nights of less than 6 hours of sleep. My body rebels when stress, takeout, and my period all stack in the same week. My body calms down when I keep bedtime steady, walk most days, and eat in a way that doesn't wreck my gut. Final reflective question for you. If you decided that every flare from now on is information, not indictment, what is the first small sustainable thing you would commit to track or change over the next 14 days? Because that's how waves become a map, and how a map becomes a plan. If this resonated with you, the next step I recommend is watching my video on how to build a calm anti-flare routine, where we take this map and turn it into daily habits around sleep, rhythm, and inflammation, so your future self doesn't have to ride such violent ups and downs. Not because you're chasing perfection, but because you're finally learning to work with your thyroid and your gut instead of fighting them in the dark.